Sports presents Benning Bites with Damon Benning. Benning Bites with Damon Benning.
Another episode of Benning Bites. We appreciate you being a part of what we do. Apple, Google, Spotify, KFOR, 9 o'clock in Lincoln, or 590 every day, Monday through Friday, 7 to 10 in Omaha, or maybe you're catching us on the YouTube channel. We hope you are. You know, a lot of great things coming up. A fantastic interview, a sit-down, one-on-one with Coach Rule coming. So stay tuned for that. That will come. That will drop this week. But as we finished up yesterday's show, it's interesting, right? We kind of rushed Kenny Bell. We probably should give him a little bit more time. But we got into something that I think is a little bit interesting. And I alluded to talking to K. Beasley or to K. Bell yesterday. You know, I said, hey, it's interesting to hear Coach Rule kind of reference. We were going through, and this is a different section between Coach Rule and I. We were going through kind of these different regimes and kind of what went on. And he's just super astute, right? He does his homework. And this is kind of pre-taking the job and kind of being a Berean, right? I always say, go be a Berean. The Bereans biblically always did their homework. People thought they were really, really inquisitive. And I've always joked that Coach Rule likes to leave nothing to chance. And so he's talking to different former players. And he says, you know, DB, he's like, the one thing that I know about those guys is like they loved that guy. Like they were fiercely loyal. And I was like, yeah. I said, you know, it's interesting. I felt like, and I don't know if it was because of the BTN broadcasts or just because Bo and I had a really good relationship, that I felt closer to those guys than the fan base did at the time, right? Like, I was a big Michael Rose-Ivy guy. I was a big Kenny Bell guy. I love Tommy Armstrong. I like Westy. And I like all those guys with Qualley and Searles. And the thing that gravitated me towards them wasn't the fact that I was doing spring games or games for BTN. It was because they were so about each other and their coach. And I get it. Real time, it kind of seems like, man, you're brainwashed. It's a little, neurotic. Are you guys going through some things? And I get it. And KB said it yesterday. Go back and listen to the segment with Kenny Bell where he said, I think sometimes it wasn't cool, and he maybe even used the word brainwashed, where he said it wasn't always popular to say what they said when they were fiercely defending Bo and kind of the us against the world thing. See, we didn't like that. But as a former player that was kind of coached around the philosophy of three things, right? Play for one another. It's about the University of Nebraska and the N on the helmets, and play in a way that's pleasing to the fans and respectful to your family. Right, that's Coach Osborne's deal. I've kind of felt like that's the way that Nebraska was playing during that time, so it drew me towards. And I'm listening to KB talk about the evolution and the plight, and I'm telling you, and I know you guys are in this wait and see mode, and I'm totally not telling you how to think. But if you're just looking for basic benchmarks, just check marks, do the players feel compelled? You remember when I went through the commitment continuum and how when you get to the compelled level, and there's literature on it, the commitment continuum. I've talked about this a couple of other times. Maybe not on Benning Bites, but just Google it. Lots of literature. And you see Nebraska football's Twitter account tweet out the 10, and they talk about compelled and commitment, and how the dangerous part is when you cross over to obsessed, right? There's just a very fine line between compelled and obsessed. Compelled can be very productive, and obsessed can be a little destructive, even though the motives are sincere and good. And it reminded me a lot of those eras. And I think one of the things that Coach Rule wants to capture is the love that era had for their particular coach and the passion for doing what they were doing. And I do challenge you, go back and listen to KB's comments about having it be about more than just football and being men and what's going to happen in life. and the part of the culture that adheres itself great to something greater than just the sport of football. And now stop and think for a second. Do I hear a lot of that in what Coach Rule is trying to accomplish? Now, the players aren't as advanced as KB is 10 years removed or 9 years removed. But there are some eerie similarities. And when we talk about what we want and compare and contrast, and we hearken back to the 9-win seasons and how it wasn't good enough then, but we would crave for it now, look no further than to start with the baseline of when a player can say and sound a lot like their coach, and they ask themselves the two following questions. Where am I, and what am I doing? And those questions can be answered a multitude of ways, but at the end of the day, you're at the University of Nebraska, and you're supposed to be representing the best version of yourself as it relates to the University of Nebraska. Do you know what those two questions do? They initiate the ability to take self-inventory. Try it at your job. Try it in the grocery store. Try it at your next sporting event. Try it in your household. Try it while you're competing. Where am I, and what am I doing? And if you think that doesn't help build self-awareness and the ability to stay in the moment, you're not being honest with yourself. It's another episode of Benning Bites.